Go to YouTube Live and show the show. Camera feed. Beautiful. Okay. Now you should be good to go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then, just a reminder, you can always mute it on the WebEx. And if you mute it on the WebEx, it will mute it on the live stream. And anything you share on WebEx will also go to the live stream. So you shouldn't have to touch anything in the live stream.
So just here.
Roxy, can you pull up the last draft that we sent you? Did we did make any changes?
Oh, do you want, okay.
Unless you want to pull up the pay scale.
Okay, which one do you want first? I have, the draft responses was from 418. Yes, that's the one. There were two, one was titled working and the other one was not.
The working one was the one where you had deleted the
Yes,
stuff.
I would use the word, the work, yeah.
Bernard, are you able to accept Bernard?
It's not it. Deleted.
So we have added, just to be more specific, that we also want a chief paramedic pay scale. And so, morning, hello.
Good morning.
Just ready to, ready to come in. So that's the only change we added here. After we finish showing you this, we will show the pay scale that, I think is fair. All right, if you scroll down, the only addition is adding and chief paramedic practitioner to the first two pages. For education incentive pay, we understood y'all's concerns about the requirements for paramedic practitioner and chief paramedic practitioner. If you scroll down, the only thing we added is that if they hold a degree outside of the ones that are required, so some physician assistant degrees include a master's and some don't. So if yours included a master's, then wouldn't be eligible, but any additional ones, if you got an additional master's in education or something else, that you would be included. Similarly, if you had a secondary bachelor's degree, that would also be included. For service incentive pay, yeah, I think we all just went back to the original language except for the will shall. For higher class pay, we removed the fellows. We take the point that they wouldn't have the qualifications to be operating as a paramedic practitioner. Parental leave, we said that uniform staff shall be entitled to 10 weeks of parental leave upon execution of the amended agreement. We think this was actually your original proposal. We had offered to say 12 weeks, starting in October, to give y'all that break and allow the department to adjust for that. Then y'all said 10 weeks in October, so, we're saying 10 weeks on execution. We tried to clean up, Article 9 to make sure that we feel like we will be entitled to this, Juneteenth. So all we added is all uniformed staff shall receive exceptional vacation, personal holiday time, and December 25th holiday pay for the same holidays as non-public safety employees in effect under city policy on the effective date of the amended agreement. Again, we think that, if you left it at city policy excludes public safety. We agree with your hour calculation. We've had very, very robust conversations about what to do with the division chief position. To be very frank, members of my team are still very uncomfortable with. We had a positive meeting on Monday where I think we aired out a lot of issues. We really would love to see this contract help us move forward some of those issues. But it just seems like we can't quite get there in a way that we don't think would be harmful to our own members. So we couldn't really come up with a way, because our last offer to y'all to just shore up the division chiefs was rejected. And so at this time, we're at 9. I think our team is still ruminating in case, we can come up with a way that gets us there. I know we are trying to wrap up bargaining, but I really want us to try to fix this issue if possible. And so our team is continuing those conversations. So right now we're at 9 still, and that is an offer. But if y'all have other ways of getting to 10, we'd certainly like to hear it. But the 450 we do not think would, in the long run, benefit the membership as a whole in a way that would make it worth it for us to concede to that. So we have agreement on how to move into the paramedic practitioner. Thank y'all for y'all's work on that. For promotion to chief paramedic practitioner, basically what we're saying is that in the future, so at the end of the amended agreement, so in 2027, October, I think is when the amended agreement would end. That the department would have to hire from within. We think that gives the chief, the medical director, 3 years to train up folks to get them in a position for leadership if they choose to submit a letter of interest. And can you scroll down?
Sorry. Keep going?
Yes, it should be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you'll see that we do still allow for a direct hire if nobody submits a letter of interest. However, if somebody does submit a letter of interest, we expect that the chief and the medical director have been working hard to give them the leadership training and that they would be successful in that role. Because that would be at least 3 years in that position, where the chief and the medical director can figure out a leadership path for anybody if the current chief paramedic practitioner chooses to move on. However, we understand that in the meantime, that there is some leeway that should be granted. So what we're saying is through the life of this amended agreement, if there is a need for a new chief paramedic practitioner, all the internals get consideration first, and then the chief can decide to do an outside hire, even if there are internals that submit, applications for a letter of interest. I think we're comfortable with removing this transfer from clinical services to the field, because we think it's covered in the voluntary. I know that y'all have wanted to leave it there because there might be some good stuff. So if y'all want to turn this into language, that's fine. We think that most of it is covered, but, I think y'all said that you like the specificity of it, so we're fine with it. That's why we didn't repeat it yet, though.
I will tell you on that part, we are still looking at it and we don't think it's all necessary, but I think there were certain portions of it that said maybe like when something would explicitly happen, but we haven't
Yeah,
put it together yet, but we're still kind of looking at it. There's no
yeah, I don't think there's.
issue, it's just.
So for pilot advanced review program, we added only one thing. I think we're very, very close. I think what we want is that we want to make sure that the moving them into the position of PA, one of the focuses that is our strongest is that we do it as quickly as possible. And so we just included this idea of possibly having a paramedic practitioner fellowship. It doesn't outline what it looks like, so it could look like anything that the chief or medical director want it to look like. It doesn't mean that they have to do clinicals with us. They can still do clinicals in the hospital. Only says the possibility. And that's just to try to provide an idea, an example of how they could be expeditiously kind of turned into that paramedic practitioner position. So, you know, so that when our paramedics in the field in communications think about becoming a paramedic practitioner, they're not thinking about necessarily 5 years, but they're thinking about 3 years for school, and then possibly some kind of internship, which includes clinical rotations or whatever, to get them back working in the field or income as quickly as possible. I believe this is agreed to language. It's about direct hire.
The only thing I would say on that is, and I don't know if it was taken out because it's part that we already agreed on. In this particular document, there is no Part C, Section 1B, so we need to just
Address
round
the-
back on that and make sure we're going to the right place.
Okay. Okay, scroll up to right here. So the beginning pay rate for chief paramedic practitioner, this is just related to the direct hire hiring process. So can be determined at the discretion of the chief, but we did provide a pay scale. Promotion from paramedic practitioner to chief paramedic practitioner, you would get that 12% bump. And so all we're saying is that if they do a direct hire, it needs to follow along that pay scale that we provided. And the effect of that is that we just want to make sure that they're getting at least that 12% raise. And I think we scrolled through it really quickly, but we did allow for the same kind of, if they have certain types of, the paramedic practitioners have certain type of experience that they can get that 2-year bump. I think that although this is a offer, obviously based on what happens with the pay scale, that might change.
Talking about this part right here.
Yes, yes. So we've greened that out, probably a little prematurely since we don't actually have pay scales. But I think, I don't think that that's an issue that I think we just need to figure that out. So I think that's it, if y'all wanna open up the pay scale. And I just sent that. See if I can pull.
It was copied and pasted on the email, so I'm trying to pull it so that we can actually see it. You happen to have a PDF of it? Let me see what I can do. I'm gonna try and. Okay.
So, the nuts and bolts of that, the pay scale would start at what our understanding is, the lowest that one of our paramedic practitioners who currently exists has been hired into, which we believe is at the 118. So that's where our pay scale starts. And then we do follow the steps, that all clinical specialists and higher follow the step structure. And we did graduate the step structure towards the end of the pay scale, so that it's not exactly the same towards the end of the pay scale, but.
So your total range from beginning to end is what? I thought you had just said 118 and ours shows 139.
That might have been. Here, why don't I join? I might have sent Joel the wrong one. I'm sorry, I have too many screenshots.
No, that's okay. It's,
Do you want me to-
yeah, ours does show 139.
I'll stop sharing.
We had originally been discussing a pay scale that looked at the hourly rate. And so we understand that the conversion between the annual salary, it looks a little different. So that's the adjustment. And we also understand that folks have come in at a lower rate than we had previously understood. Roxy, I'm just gonna send it to you because I think it'll take longer. Okay. Y'all consider this our second home.
But yeah,
Consider this our second. We can move later. Should I pass this to you?
A little while.
So you'll see the first step starts at the 118, and then if they had that additional experience, then they would go to the 123 that we believe most of the paramedic practitioners have been hired into. And the chief paramedic practitioner just has that 12% bump. And we you can see the change at the high end of the pay scale is much more graduated.
Right here. And so based on what you said earlier, the chief paramedic practitioner scale is basically a 12% differential from the paramedic practitioner pay scale? Based on the annualized salary?
Yes. And based on that, this one. And that's what we had.
Okay, so the range on your paramedic practitioner is 118 to 174 roughly. Okay. Chief paramedic practitioner is 132 to 1.
Five.
All right, we'll look at those. Any questions? Okay, well, let us look at your responses and your pay scales, kind of see where we get. It is 11:50. So lunch, and let's look at 1 o'clock. I'll touch base with you, see if we can do 1 or maybe 1:30, depending on how far we get.
And is that 26? Are y'all thinking about presenting 26 or?
I think we're not ready with 26 as a group. We have not gotten all the way through it. So, well, we can focus on 26 so that we can get it out there and you can have something to be working on instead of focusing on a direct response, if that's easier for you. If that's the case, then you can probably have that ready by 1 or 1:30. Yeah, so let me touch base with you prior to 1 o'clock and let you know if 1 or 1:30's.
Okay.
And we'll focus on 26. That makes sense.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Let me start sharing. What we're gonna do, first off is we're gonna present our draft, Article 26, and just as an introduction to what Article 26 is, the last Article 26 was this reopener that we'll hear about. So that one, we're utilizing it as of the amended agreement, that will no longer be a necessary article. So what we're using that article for is to tie up all the loose ends that need to be addressed in accomplishing the integration of the OCMO office into the EMS department. I sent it over right before we came over here, and please let me know if you didn't get it and I can resend it. I'll be presenting it on the screen. Now, I have in here, this is a draft, and the title should actually say draft. It's the draft proposal. But this is a working draft of what we're looking at. And I say working draft because I want to make sure that we're going through all the concepts and all the things that we have discussed. We've had several meetings with Houston Tower, your attorney, to try and at least make sure that we address, that we had in our heads the subjects and the issues that both parties were looking at and addressing in this Article 26. So Section 1 states the purpose and applicability of this article is to facilitate the organizational and funding integration of the Office of Chief Medical Officer to the department in the budget year 2023-2024. So this Article 26 is intended to just complete that integration and allow for the drop of the OCMO people into the EMS department. On Section 2, we state pursuant to the city's management rights, the chief shall, under his full authority and discretion, determine and direct the methods, strategies, and processes for the integration, including organizational structure, ranks, job descriptions, and assignments for the department. That is a reiteration of what the current city's management rights are under this. The chief shall have the authority to appoint personnel under the new definition of uniform staff as stated in this amended agreement, regardless of eligibility or years of service. This is the, now this is intended to say that the positions that are coming from the OCMO former office that are going to become sworn positions, that the chief can do the initial placement and appointment of those into the ranks that are going to be part of the organizational structure as determined by the chief. Such appointments, so, and regardless of eligibility, years of service, that kind of goes in line with Article 6, which is the wage article, where we're going to place certain people in certain step positions so as they do not lose money. And that we basically what we call red circle. So that allows for that, and that does not conflict. Such appointments shall not be subject to the grievance process set forth in this agreement, amended agreement, nor may they be appealable either to the Civil Service Commission, a hearing examiner, a district court, or any other court or venue. Nothing in this article shall be construed to abrogate any of the city's management rights. Section 3. Uniform staff appointed pursuant to this article shall be covered under this amended agreement as of its effective date. That is meaning to say that everything that's under the agreement now shall apply to those uniform staff that are appointed under Article 26. Section 4, pay for uniform staff appointed pursuant to this article. And we have two different categories of employees coming in. Some are in executive positions and some are in non-executive positions. Letter A addresses the people coming in from executive positions. The chief's appointments to new positions under this article previously in executive positions shall, A, be placed on a pay scale under Article 6, Section 1A, and that includes all the pay scales that are in that first section for the first, for that budget year, at the discretion of the chief, and shall not be subject to the grievance process set forth in this amended agreement, and are not appealable to the Civil Service Commission, a hearing examiner, a district court, or any other court or venue. B, shall not advance to the next pay step in which they were placed until they meet the years of service with the department required for the pay step in which they are placed. And C, shall receive and accrue benefits as provided for in this amended agreement as of the second full pay period after the effective date of this amended agreement. On B, uniform staff appointed under this article who were previously in non-executive positions under OPMO shall be subject to the provisions for wages under Article 6. And again, that refers to the red circling language that we have added in or have in our proposal under Article 6. Section 5, applicability of provisions of it's supposed to say amended agreement to uniform staff appointed pursuant to this article. Any future promotions or transfers shall be pursuant to this amended agreement. That is to say, they may get appointed and put in a position, but if they sought to get any kind of future promotion or transfer, that they would be subject to the processes and the conditions and the terms of the amended agreement. B, uniform staff appointed under this article shall receive credit for their years of service with the city unless otherwise specified in this agreement. C, uniform staff appointed under this article may be provided with a modified training academy at the discretion of the chief. D, holidays and leaves are subject to the policies and procedures of the department, including assignments and scheduling requirements. Any holiday and leave that has been previously approved prior to the effective date of this amended agreement shall be honored. E, uniform staff appointed under this article shall retain their leave balances previously accrued prior to the effective date of this amended agreement. F, uniform staff members appointed to, and this is the language should say uniform staff appointed under this article shall be entitled to the following benefits as of the second full pay period after the effective date of this amended agreement. And this is the laundry list basically of the items where we had at first initially placed some language to make sure they received them, but decided we will just list them in Article 26. I would ask that you go through that and make sure that we captured all the articles in the leave and holiday, vacation and sick leave articles that we had identified and that we had addressed. I believe that we have. Section 6, upon vacancy of the positions held by the uniform staff appointed under this article, those positions shall then be filled in the process prescribed by this amended agreement. Section 7, there shall be no retroactive grievances regarding any effects of this integration or any compensation benefits and working conditions of the uniform staff appointed under this article. Section 8, the city waives the 45 business day grievance submission deadline in Article 19, Section 4, Step 2 regarding possible grievances that have developed between October 1, 2023 and the effective date of this agreement. And I would just like to say that on Section 7 and Section 8, that reiterates the language of hit agreed to in the prior Article 26 for the reopener in anticipation of this integration. Section 9, preemption. It is expressly understood and agreed that all provisions of this article shall preempt any statute, executive order, local ordinance, city policy, or rule which is in conflict with this amended agreement without limitation, including chapters 141, 142, and 143 of the Texas Local Government Code. And that's the end of the Article 26.
And I would like to emphasize that, as you've done the last couple of times, this really is a draft. So please work with us. If we catch something, we made a mistake on ourselves, which I find not unlikely. It really is a draft, but we want you to have something to start working with more formally as well. So
So there's like in section 2, when And this is, I think, just something we need to make sure that we're clarifying, is that when it says the chief shall have the authority to appoint personnel under the new definition of uniform staff. My assumption is that y'all are referring solely to the position, the new positions being, correct?
Right, and so the intent is, and we maybe, as Sarah said, we're working on this draft. We can probably clarify that a little bit, but let me tell you what the intention is. The intention is that he can't appoint from anywhere. It's those people that are coming from OCMO, that are coming into sworn positions, that's what this initial appointment process applies to. So yes, you are correct, and that is the intention, and,
That's, I was assuming, so.
Sure.
I just make sure that, like I would discuss before, that we all know the context of the intent much more than somebody in 2-3 years or later may think. So I appreciate that. And a question under where it said the chief's appointments to positions under this article previously in executive positions, that these are folks who were in executive positions with Aqua.
yes.
And I just can't think of who those or what positions those are off the top of my head. And so if, not even that we need to put those exactly in here as much as we get, I want to make sure that we're clear on what were the executive position, the people who were in executive positions that will be now uniform staff, so that we know exactly who this is, what positions this is applying to.
Right, and for the record, let me reemphasize something I said last week, just for anybody who may not have been watching or whatever. Huge difference between executive and exempt. We are not talking anybody who was exempt, but we are only talking literally people who were classified by the city as executives.
That's assuming there's one position that becomes executive chief of staff.
I believe, I don't know his prior position, but I believe there's only one.
Okay, so that, and I think that's just, like, I totally understand the difference between executive and the exempt for these purposes, but to understand who this section applies to, or what position this section applies to. Another purpose too is the following, just so that we can have clarity for our explanation to our membership of what positions are going to have which rules applying to them on 26. That's just for.
And if you recall, that actually is tied to some of the language that we have negotiated on Article 26, where we left at first we had left a placeholder for executive people coming into a sworn position. And I think we ultimately agreed to some language, but the language on the table was unless otherwise addressed by Article 26. That was meant to be a placeholder for addressing an executive position, transferring into a sworn position, and that's what this is trying to accomplish.
These are all just, so please excuse me as I'm just like kind of shooting from the hip.
Sure.
So under section 5, subsection D, holidays and leaves are subject to the policies and procedures of the department. I understand the intent of this is to bring in that special leave, the holidays, vacation accrual, those types of benefits that they are not receiving currently at Aqua, but that we have a different, so there's a different system under EMS. Does that in any way, in y'all's intent, impact the, like us trying to get Juneteenth or extended parental leave? Is that intended at all to impact that, or is this just solely, or is that leaving that out?
So let me start with the intent of what this was addressing. The accruals and all of that is addressed by letter F, saying the new appointee, the new people that were appointed under the Aqua integration now will be accruing all their benefits according, under this laundry list. The intent of, and some of my team may add to me, but the intent of the holiday and and leave section under D is that when they were in Akmo, you know, if you got a holiday, you had that day off.
Yeah.
If you had, there was the Akmo office had its own policies and procedures
Yeah.
with regard to leave. Now that they're moving into a sworn position, that has, the department has its policies and procedures with regard to how that gets approved and how all that leave gets taken. So that the operations are not affected, you know, and that is meant to address that these Akmo people that are now coming into the department as sworn are going to be subject to the same policies and procedures as all the other sworn, positions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of stating the obvious. It would be true if we did not have that sentence there, right? But because that one might be kind of touchy to people, we wanted to just focus and say, make it clear. Guys, it is now, it's no longer a day off. It's done differently. This is when it starts, this is how it starts. But hey, wait a minute, you're not gonna lose your old time either. If it's already been requested, you still get it. So just kind of clarification more than,
As far as.
yeah, and we have no problem with tweaks to this. I mean, it's just kind of trying to put
Yeah,
everything
no.
out there so it's clear.
So we're very happy that that's like, that we're able to collaborate on this so much.
Yeah.
It makes it much easier. And just know that when I'm these questions, I'm more trying to clarify in my head of how, whether or not we're hitting that intent, and if there's ways for us to make it more specific, more on point.
I just. Article 26, we've been waiting for is probably gonna be, just the specifics will be very, very challenging for my members and. We can kind of share a little bit why, but I think 3 issues that we really want to work on, and I hope that it's not, I think we are really in the space of interest-based bargaining. One, because these folks are new to the department and, if they are placed at a certain rank that comes with supervisory, that generally have supervisory roles, we would expect that to not be the case until they've completed all the requisite training and maybe even like a cool-down period, just so that they understand the culture of the department. That. Also, it's really, really important to us that they go through the same training that everybody got the rank went through. Including all the things that it takes to become any position that they hold. We also want to make sure that we see any ordinance changes that occur so that we can look at the positions that might be matched up. Because I know there has to be an ordinance change to change all of the sworn numbers. So we'd like to see a draft of that. And if that's something that I need to talk to Chief with, since it's not technically bargaining.
It is. I mean, we've kind of discussed that. We have nothing to do with that ordinance from a bargaining perspective or under the statute, 143, anything like that. But we do intend that they be done simultaneously, just that we're hands off on that.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can go and make the legal comment, perhaps, Chris Coppola and or your chief on that.
And
But we
then-
understand why.
Yeah, and then, we do have expectations on capping what position they can enter into, so that, you know, we have concerns about them taking up positions that are much higher than, you know, if they have been here for 2 years, and we have people that, even as fast as they can promote, have been here for 10, 15 years and haven't been able to achieve certain ranks, or it makes it very difficult for our membership to swallow that pill, even with the sweeteners that are in the rest of the contract. So that's just kind of the conversation that we're having, and so I just want to share those with y'all. Just because those types of subjects will definitely be in our response.
I think along that was that, because we've had pretty good discussions about where we would be. And while still we respect the management rights to a certain degree, you know, the contract is a place for us to both give up some of those rights on that. And so whether or not it is appropriate to place those caps and to codify in this contract what we have discussed as to top rank for folks. Hopefully that is something we can have up for discussion to actually put down in paper as to allow that discretion, which could go outside of what we intended. As we have all discussed throughout this process.
So as you know, the current management rights of the chief allow him to set up the organizational structure, which includes the organizational chart, the ranks, the authorized strength pursuant to the ordinance, and all of that. And I don't believe that your question is having to, or your issue is having to do with where these may come into placement with regard to an organizational structure or rank structure. Our position as the city is that we do not believe that belongs in the contract or the negotiation of this particular contract, because we're not abrogating any of the management rights at this point. But that would be a conversation that would be held between the chief and, I don't think it's here, it's a conversation to be had, but I don't believe it's an item to be placed in the contract. So, but we can have some, we will consider what you put on the table, that will always be considered. We will take those, we always listen to the concerns and the intents behind why you're doing that, and figure out a way to try to resolve those to a mutually beneficial, a solution on that. But for putting some sort of caps on where those placements are, because it's within the chief's management rights, our position is, our position is that doesn't belong in the contract, and that's another conversation.
We'll put it in because I don't wanna, overstate to us the importance of that subject, and that we really will need some, we only have a few ranks anyway, so, the wiggle room is not great. But we believe, outside of the contract, or the contract does really detail hiring, promotions, and so to us, it's perfectly applicable here. So, we'll show y'all, obviously, what our members want, the marketing team. So, but it will be very, very.
That is clearly noted, and I just want to note that the position that we state does not in any way limit what you can, what y'all can bring to us is, it's negotiation and we'll consider it. But on this particular item, I do appreciate the back and forth and the collaboration, because this is a really critical piece of just this whole integration in this negotiation. And I think that we've made some strides on this. And we do hear you. I wanted to note that we have also, we understand the concerns on the training, the academy, the requirements and the supervision issues. Section C under section 5 is meant to kind of cover that. So just so you know where that is within this whole deal, and we'll consider whatever, we'll see what you come back with.
Yeah, and I just want to stress how important it is to the team and the membership. So I'm just gonna go ahead.
The thing when we talk about, like kind of the rank structure stuff is how we already have precedent for where direct hires can go. Like, and that's already within our existing contract as to, we already can where direct hires, how direct hires can come in and place that. We've done, that's a deviation from how you might promote per statute. And so we want to make sure that we can follow along in that same sense of creating, because most of these as direct hires or transfers over. It's comments in that regard very well. And so just want to kind of point that out. There are caps already.
Well, and we did
in the contract. And so
we took that
be
into,
allowed to hold on.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. We did take that into consideration. If you look at the direct hire, the direct, you have to be qualified for that particular rank, and you have to have those eligibility requirements for the rank. And the caps, I think, are with regard to the requirements there, and then the steps within the pay scales that they're set. So that may be a little bit different than what we're dealing with here, but I'll look at that. And again, if you have any questions, because I know this is there's a lot in this, a couple of pages of article, just let us know if you have any questions. If we need to have a subcommittee meeting or happy to facilitate that.
We also do have a response on your pay scale that we can put for you.
While she's pulling that up, did y'all think y'all wanted to present on the package today? Was that a goal?
To respond to what you presented this morning. Not necessarily. I mean, we worked on Article 26 the whole time, so.
I'm not sure.
Thank you. Article 26 is a big help.
Well, and I know you want time to dig into it, so we wanted to get that on the table
Yeah.
before I mean, the other ones were fairly deep into, and I don't sure said anything. For that, I mean, I think we'll work it out. Article 26, you've never seen. I mean, Houston and Roxy but Artie had never really dug in deep either, so you're gonna need some time to really line by line.
One more thing, you're totally right about our previous 26. We don't have to take
I-
any action.
I did look at that as well, yeah, we're good unless somebody
So,
all of a sudden,
and that's only if it was a declared. So you're totally correct on
Yeah.
that. We don't have to take any further action.
yeah, I was very happy to see that as well. So we have not forwarded this, we will forward it as soon as we leave here. And I'm gonna let Brian kind of go through the details. We did, consider what you had said and what we had discussed in the subcommittee, regarding kind of where people had started to begin with, who actually were qualified at the time when they started. We also wanted you to take into consideration, some of our concepts are at the end of the pay scale, we need to ensure that they're in a low enough place to where the last person on this pay scale still has another rank above them and still is under the AC, right? So we were trying to make sure that we had it, both quantifiably below that and within the same or similar kind of range to the other ranks that you have. So in addition to that, we know that you wanted people to not be able to be dropped in. The scale actually started at, I think, 102. And we know that you had some concerns about not hiring people who are competent enough or qualified enough or being able to get people in. And we did, noting that in the job description itself, you have to have the 2 years experience. So we did black out those two for that reason. So mathematically, the scale goes down to 102, but not in practicality. Okay, so I will let Brian explain the rest, but that's kind of that total range, like 102 to 162-ish. But with the first 2 years blacked out, we get much closer to the numbers. Go for it, Brian.
All right, you explained most of it. And basically, what we did on this is we took the market data that we got from consultants, and we determined the range, the structural range that was already in this similar to ranks. And so we put that market data point in there so that it fit into that range underneath the blacked out, right? So as she said, from the midpoint or from the entry rate from the base rank all the way to the top rank, the market value that we came up with is basically about the average of those two figures. Is how it is. And then, like she said, considering that the minimum qualifications require 2 years of related experience, we blacked out those 2 years.
So we'll send this to you. Any questions on?
I don't have questions. I still think that, the way that we have cleaned out the contract, still, even if we said they could have 2 years additional experience, and that, let's say, in a very optimistic world, that gets them to step 50, I still believe that's $7,000 less than what the other PA started out as. And so unless y'all are open and I think y'all probably are open to much more flexibility. We want to at least be able to adjust the pay scale so that, by understanding your constraints that you have, adjust the pay scales in ways that we think match closer to, the reality of the hiring practices that we see.
Yeah, and I would just state that with the very few number of paramedic practitioners that we have, that it's very difficult to just flat out state, well, here's our, because we have done a market study. And we're trying to, obviously, we know that all of the current people, it doesn't have that much to do with them because they're gonna be red circled and they're not getting anything taken away. So this is if somebody leaves and or if the whole class of service is expanded, that's when they would be coming in under this pay scale. We are open to, concepts of giving credit for past service and or, even looking at if it's somebody who, if the pilot program happens to work out, if it's somebody who's coming from the city of Austin EMS department, some listening to those kind of experiential credit, that sort of thing. I'm happy to listen to that. I think numerically, that doesn't mean they wouldn't start at the same place, but I think presuming that people should start at the same place that they started at under Akno when that was a department. And they weren't sworn, didn't have the same benefits, didn't have the same sick leave accruals that they're now going to have, didn't have the protection of Selena, didn't have a lot of the things that they're gaining under this contract, is not really the best method of going about this. So that's kind of where we're coming.
And yeah, I'm looking at the stats and it looks like there's 6 years where there's no step. And so those are some of the things that we want to take a closer look at and try to modify it more closer to what we currently have.
If we're happy to hear whatever, I'm just kind of trying to tell you how we got to where we are. And again, any questions along those lines, feel free to ask us. Or if we need another subcommittee sort of situation, we're welcome, happy to do that as well. In which case, we do not have another data set, do we?
Yeah, so if you want to talk to your team about getting us some dates, then I can put it out to our folks and see if we can find some dates.
Let's do that, and then we'll just post it for public consumption. All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Sylvia, do you want to come down with us so that I can give you this last word?
We have better.